Fat side up or fat side down? What's the right way, guys? Who wants to argue for 5 hours? It all depends on who you're talking to, right? At the end of the day, both ways work great. Both ways can produce really, really delicious barbecue. A lot of times it depends on what kind of cooker you have, how the heat actually travels through your cooker, whether it's coming in from the bottom or the top. There's no right way, wrong way anymore. You know, a lot of the old school guys say, oh, everything's low and slow. If you're not using a stick burner, it's not real barbecue. If you're grilling, it's not real barbecue. You know what? This world is changing really, really fast. Heck, Texas Monthly had an article out this last issue, right? They're putting brisket in noodles. Everything's about fusion, it's about great flavor, and it's about what makes you and your family and your friends happy. So don't be afraid to try different things. Don't be afraid to mix 3, 4 different rub combinations. You know, it's not the same old world we used to live in, especially when it comes to cooking. There's all kinds of fusion and great flavors out there. Don't be afraid to experiment and try different things. One of the things in comps, you know, because you're wrapping earlier and you're cooking hotter, you know, you can get done a little bit quicker that way.
Okay.
At home, I don't do that. I don't inject, I like just good, natural, light seasoning and stuff. I want to taste that meat, but in comps, you know, you've got that judge, several judges, they get one bite. So you got to really put a lot of rich flavor in that thing so that one bite stands out, you know. So it's a little different game over there. The high heat does contribute to the bark, gives it that roast. And what I tell people in our class, like, you know, you go look at any cookbook about how to cook a roast in the oven, they start them at 400 degrees, you know. So there's nothing wrong with starting hot. That's kind of the recommended thing, been done that way forever. But in comps, you know, brisket, pork butt, historically it's been the low and slow thing, which is good because, and I do that at home, 250, 275, because it does allow more of the collagen and the connective tissue to stay in the meat, which is what gives it that succulent, juicy flavor, right? Or mouthfeel, I call it.
Yeah.
Where it's not dry. But in comps, we're injecting, we're putting all this flavor, we're doing all this stuff, we're wrapping, and we're resting it for 2 or 3 hours. It rehydrates. It'll sweat some, and then it'll suck it back in as it cools off. So
You put it in the cooler after when you pull it off.
yeah, I just stick it in my Cambro. I like to let it come down, both brisket and pork. I let it for it to come down below 200 or right around 200, because I'll run them 210, 211, 209. Once it's on the way down, hit 200 or so, 99, 201, I'll stick it in the Cambro and leave my thermopen probe in there with the chef alarm. And it don't ever go back up. It just slowly comes down. I like an hour and a half, 2 hours minimum rest.
Usually try to slice it out.
About 145, 150. Yeah, that allows it to come down. Cools off enough where the moisture stays in the meat when you're slicing. The moisture stays in the meat by that point. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, sir. We'll be having a barbecue academy here. We're so glad you guys showed up here. We're gonna serve you guys some really delicious pork butt. We're gonna walk you through a couple of little things that I think are important on pork butt if you want to cook it at home or for family and friends. It's a really big piece of meat. So a couple of things that are really important on pork butt is time and consistency. It's a big piece of meat with a lot of different muscles, but you have to be consistent with your temperature. Normally a pork butt about this size, they're generally about 9 or 10 pounds most of the time. It's gonna be about a 10-hour cook at 275. We cooked 14 of them the other day and it was exactly 10 and a half hours with 14 of them. Pretty much, you want to make sure your temperature is consistent, which requires a little bit of work, right? A little bit of time, a little bit of effort, especially if you're cooking on a stick burner. You want to make sure you stay on that thing, keep the fire steady. Other thing is, you want to pump up the flavor. We're going to show you guys a simple little recipe that you can use at home that will really kick the flavor up, that's going to wow your family and your friends, and you're going to be a cul-de-sac king. One of the things about the pork butt, you'll see here, this is called the money muscle. In competition, they call this the money muscle because it's the softest, tenderest, most flavorful piece of the pork butt. Why do we inject the pork butt? Because we want to kick the flavor up a couple of notches. We want to make sure it tastes really, really good when we're going to serve it to our family and our friends. So what we're going to do, we're going to take first 2 cups of apple juice, but I'm going to say that's right at 2 cups, right? Close enough. Now apple juice is sweet, flavorful, very, very common in the competition world to use on pork, whether it's ribs or pork butt. A lot of guys even spritz their briskets and of course ribs and things like that with it. Just adds a nice, sweet, little mellow flavor to it. And here's one of the other things, this is a kind of a pro tip too, mango. and pork butt works really well. You want to take a 1/4 cup of mango juice, and Jumex makes a really, really good one. What it does, it helps break down the meat a little bit. Besides that, it adds another little element of sweet that's not apple juice, but it's also sweet and it makes it taste really, really good. And it helps break down those muscle fibers and the tissues, the collagen and the connective tissue, which is part of what you want. You want to make sure you break down that connective tissue and the collagen that's in the pork butt. That's what makes it taste really great. You don't want to cook it so far where you cook that stuff out of that. You want to try and keep that connective tissue and the collagen in the meat. That's what makes it succulent. That's what makes it juicy. So let's keep going with our injection here. The next thing you want to do, we're going to show you guys a little comp trick. We're going to actually put a teaspoon, and I brought a tablespoon, so that's going to be about a teaspoon of rub. Now this is bone sucking rub. Has a little bit of sweet, has a little bit of savory, has a little bit of garlic, has a little bit of paprika. All those flavors are great on pork butt. They help make the pork butt taste a little bit better. Okay, we're gonna make it work today, and we don't have a whisk, so we're gonna mix it up with what we do have. I'm gonna use my injector to just kind of mix that stuff up really good. Normally you wanna do this ahead of time. You can mix it up the night before, just keep it up in your refrigerator. We're also going to use 2 tablespoons of Tony Chacha's butter. Besides having a little bit more spices, a little bit more flavor, and the xanthan gum is going to help everything stick inside and keep the juices, keep the collagen, and keep everything inside the pork butt. So we want to use 2 tablespoons. Now you can use more if you like. You know, it just depends on what kind of flavor you want to put out at the end. I like to use just 2 tablespoons because I'm a big fan of, I want to taste the meat. I want it to taste really great. I want to have that wow factor, but at the same time, I still want my pork butt, my barbecue, whatever it is, to taste like the meat that I'm cooking. So a balance, you know, between the smoke, the spices, the injection, you know, and then your finishing process. If you can balance everything out, at the end of the day, you're gonna have a really, really happy crowd, whether it's your family or your friends, and you're gonna enjoy your barbecue a whole lot more. Normally, like I said, you wanna mix this up ahead of time, the night before, let the spices dissolve, let all the flavors commingle together and become one great flavor. Now these injectors all have different settings. I like mine on full. I wanna control the injection with my hand. So I wanna go in all the way. As you squeeze the trigger, you want to be pulling your needle out at the same time. You don't want to inject too much. All you want to do is enhance the flavor. So that's my money muscle there. I got that part done. Got a little bit more left. I'm going to come over here where the bone is. Next, I'm going to come from this side. You see how it plumps up? All you want to do is plump it up. And you can go a couple different angles depending on how big the muscle you're at. Here's a neat trick too to fill up your injector a little bit quicker. Just unscrew your needle. Don't tighten it too tight when you put it back on. Then you just kind of want to come around the pork butt, pump it up a little bit, and just kind of go all the way around. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of different muscles here, so it's really important that you keep that needle moving at the same time that you're pulling the trigger. That way you get them all. You want to come from the top, right around the middle here. If your pork butt's really cold like this one is, normally I like to sit my meat on the counter about 30-45 minutes, let it kind of loosen up a little. It will accept the injection a lot better that way. It will stay in the meat a little bit better also. So you see the sides here, you want to come on the sides too, down toward the bottom. And or right across the middle here. You just want to come right across here. That way you make sure you get all the muscles. You see how it's plumping up? And that's all you want to do. You want to plump it up. We want to enhance the flavor, not change it. Here's the bone. All right, you can flip it over. Kind of do the same thing here. Go through the fat if you want. I tend to just mainly do it from the other side. But you can go from the bottom and kind of do the same thing if you want to add a lot of extra flavor. In competition, we do that a lot. We over inject and put a lot more flavor because the judges here in Texas basically get one bite. So that's pretty much all you got to do to inject, guys. You don't have to over inject. You don't want to overstuff it. What you want to do is, like I say, and this is something I preach, you want to enhance the flavor, not change the flavor. When you take a bite of that pork, you still want to taste the pork. You're cooking pork butt, or you're cooking brisket, or you're cooking ribs, or chicken, whatever it happens to be. It's all about balance. You want your food to be balanced. Not too much smoke, not too much sauce, not too much rub. Just a little bit of everything creates that harmony of flavors when it hits your mouth. I do highly recommend, because it's a big piece of meat, I do recommend seasoning your pork butt the night before. Normally, if you're doing like ribs, I'm a fan of seasoning ribs in the morning. I'll season the ribs first, then I'll go light my fire. Takes about 35, 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops, for my fire to get settled in and be ready to go. So you don't want to over season your thin cuts of meats, but brisket, or like today's example, pork butt, you can season it the night before. You can even be a little bit heavy-handed, and it's not going to really affect it too much. If anything, the salt helps penetrate and adds a little bit more flavor. What we're going to do today, we're going to use a little bit of my friend Chris Mark's Kansas City Championship rub. And I didn't bring any butter or oil or anything, guys, but one of the things you can do, I like parquet. I'm a big fan of parquet on my meats before I rub. Now the Kansas City Championship rub, by the way, if y'all don't know who Chris Marks is, this guy is a 9-time, count them, 9-time world champion. So I would think the guy knows a little bit about what kind of rubs to put on meat and what produces great flavor. You want to rub that in a little bit on the fat here, on the fat side. Now this rub has a real good savory flavor, has the paprika, the chili powders that really enhance pork a lot. You want to make sure you get it on all 3 sides first. Ooh, that wind's blowing like crazy. Then we're going to use this bone sucking rub, which is another great flavor that they sell here in the Academy. This has a lot of the same, but it also has a lot more sugar. Now the sugar is going to enhance the pork, make it a little bit sweeter. You can get nice and heavy-handed with this stuff too. The sugar is going to help enhance your bark. It's going to make that bark nice and dark, pretty. And like I said earlier, you want to maybe put some parquet butter on there, or a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of canola oil, whatever flavor oil you prefer or that you like. You want to pat it down nice. You can get heavy-handed with this stuff. It doesn't have a lot of salt. Really good stuff. Pat that down. Okay, now we got the bottom done. Normally you want to let that set 15-20 minutes with that rub on the other side and on the sides, and then you're going to come back and follow the same steps on the top. And if it's really windy like today, you might want to wear safety glasses, okay? So anyway, normally you want to let each rub set for about 5-10 minutes at least. Let it kind of start to bring up some of the moisture. It'll get nice and tacky and pretty. Get it on there nice and heavy. You want that sugar to add that real pretty color and a real pretty bark. I think we forgot this side here. And here's another thing, guys. You decide what you want. It's different for everybody. This is not as sweet. It's not real sweet at all. This one is got quite a bit of sweet in it. So you decide what you want your friends or your family to taste first. If you want them to taste sweet first, put that on last. If you want them to taste the savory, salty stuff first, put that on last. So you can go either way. Try to get it done early in the afternoon. Let it rest about 2 hours. The rest is real important. When you have it rested, when you have it done and you pull it out, it's going to let out some of its internal juices. You want to let it sit an hour, hour and a half, preferably 2. As it begins to cool off, it will rehydrate. It will begin to reabsorb some of those juices, and those juices have a lot of really great flavor in them. I will usually keep my Thermopin, not the Thermopin, my chef alarm probe with a wire on it inside the pork butt or the brisket, and I'll set it on the counter, on the table, on the side. I'll watch that temp. Once it starts coming down to 200 or a little bit below that, then I'll put it in the Cambro and I'll leave the probe attached so I can watch my temperature. I want it to come down nice and slow. As it cools off slowly, it begins to rehydrate and absorb some of all those natural juices. If you don't have a Cambro, get your little ice chest, put you a couple of towels on the bottom lined up. That'll help, insulate the ice chest. Trust me, I used to put briskets foiled up in the bottom of the ice chest. You do that a couple of times, it'll totally roast the bottom of that ice chest, and then it'll start to peel into pieces. So put you a couple pieces of towel first, put your pork butts on top of that, then cover it with some more towels. Give it an hour, 2 hours preferably. Let it come down slow. You want to start to pull it apart somewhere around 170, 165. You know, if you want to slice pieces off, you want to be about 150, 145, 150. But basically that is an awesome, great way to prepare the pork butt. Don't put your sauce on right away. You want to put the sauce on and then you want to mix it up a little bit, you know, tumble it a little bit at the end, not at the beginning, not right away, because otherwise the meat absorbs all that barbecue sauce. Remember what I said about balance? Then all you taste is barbecue sauce. You want to be able to taste the pork and the sauce. Now this is a really good sauce. It has, I swear it's not from Texas, but when you taste it, I'd swear it's a Texas sauce. It has that nice little tomato base, has a little vinegar in there, gives it that little tart. Pretty nice, well balanced as it is. If you want to sweeten it up, you can add a little bit of liquid brown sugar or just liquid white sugar. You can add some honey in there, shake it up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to show y'all another little trick here, how to make that pork butt taste even better yet. Now, if you didn't inject your pork butt, or even if you did, another thing you can do to enhance the flavor, you can dust it with another flavor. This is Cluckin' Awesome. This is a chicken rub by The Shed. Mostly everybody knows who The Shed is. Anyway, this is their chicken rub. When I tasted it, I was like, man, that tastes sweet. That goes good with pork. Real sweet, really good. Shake a little bit on top. If you want it even sweeter, they also have one called Rack Attack. That's really good. It has a little cumin, a little more chili powder, and a little bit of sugar. It's really, really awesome stuff. You want to put your finishing dust on there, that extra little flavor pop if you want. You can use anything you want, but if you want it sweet, that's really good. And then you want to shake a little bit of sauce on here. And just do a little at a time first, okay? Put a little bit like that. Then you want to go ahead and toss it. Get that rub, get that sauce all mixed in, really, really nice. You want to enhance the flavor. Remember, we don't want to change it. We just want to enhance it. Mix it up like that really good. And if you think it needs to be sweeter, then go ahead, you know, and get yourself a little bit more sauce. And like I was saying earlier, you don't want to do this way ahead of time. You want to do that right before you serve it, because you want your friends, your family to still taste the pork. You want it to still taste like really good, delicious pork that's been enhanced a little bit with a little bit of sauce. Come on in, ma'am. Help yourself. Come on. Get a sample. It's pork butt.
Try one with some.
Super good pork butts. Can I get everybody right up front here just for a real quick group picture, please? Hey barbecue lovers, we're up here at the Academy, Sports and Outdoors with the Barbecue Academy. Thank you to Old World Spices for providing us all the great ingredients that went into our pork butt that we gave out today for free. Turned out to be an amazing day. We totally ran out of food except for these last couple of samples. It's been 3 hours. It's still fresh, it's still amazing, still tastes fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and get me finally a little lunch, if you want to call it that. Noel, how about you join me?
Right.
Thank you to my brother-in-law Noel here from Haslett, Texas, for allowing us to use his smoker and come up here and have a good time. We're ready to shut it down. Hold on, I'm gonna put me some bone sucking sauce on here first. This stuff's really good, really, really good.